Hello and welcome back. All right, so in here we're going to look at URL variables that people are supposed to send. Now, since this is your API, you get to make all the rules. And then once you make the rules, you can put documentation to explain what your rules are. So if we take, for example, this JSON placeholder website. So the very first page you find is that it's the explanation or the documentation, which is very nice because when somebody gets here, immediately they get acquainted with your API. There's even a nifty example here, very nice. We can implement something like this as well. I kind of like that. And then down here you have the rules on how to, what is possible here, what you can access from this API. So you have posts, comments, albums, photos, etc. And then you have the routes here, which are kind of like the rules to follow when trying to retrieve your data. So if you notice here, the first variable that you send here, for example, here it's posts, and then there's comments, and then probably there's images, and then there's to-dos, just like you have the to-do here. So this will represent the table name in our situation. Now, it doesn't have to be the actual table name. It could just be an alias for the actual table name. So we can put in some logic to detect what, when this word is sent, then we send it to this particular table. When this is sent, we send it here. So this is what that represents. And then there's a second variable here, which represents the record that we want to return. If this is not given, then it returns all of these. So all the to-dos will be returned if no number is given. And then if a number is given, that particular one will be returned. These are very simple rules and I kind of like them. So we're going to copy this, which makes for a very short document here, just up to here, and we've read everything we need to know about this API. Okay, so great. We're going to deal with authentication later. For now, we just want free reign. Anyone can access our API at this point. So let's see how we can make use of that. So I'm going to show you how to do it in a simple way here. And then in the next video, we're going to convert this to a more robust situation where we use clean URLs like these, where there's a /to-do/1. For now, we're going to use queries with a question mark in our URL. Okay, so let's see how we can have that done. So this is how we retrieve data, but we're going to remove all this for now, or at least let me just move it lower. Let's see here. Wait a minute. Okay, so what I will do is add a switch statement here. So I'll say switch and paste. So now before I give the switch a variable, I must collect from my get variables here. So I'm just going to say get, or let's see, I'll create a get of my own like that, which doesn't have the underscore because it's my own variable. So that will be equal to the original get. Or let's do this. Let's say table. That would be more understood. So we're going to say table is equal to get. And the variable we are looking for in the get is, we're going to just name it table as well. Or it doesn't have to be table, it can be page like that. It's entirely up to you. So let's say the page name or the table. Now we'll put a question mark because this is an if statement. Because it's possible that this get variable will not exist because users will test your system to see if it will still function without certain rules being followed. So you must account for that. So if this is set, so we just check is set like this. Okay. So if it is set, copy that, then let's echo that. Let's put this in there. If it isn't, let's put a full colon there, and what we're going to give it is a default value. So what table do we want them to access if they don't give us anything? Now, at this point, it's up to you to decide, but I think it's good to be strict with your rules. So instead of giving them the opportunity or the option to get something even without following the rules, let's just put null there so that we don't retrieve anything if they don't follow the rules. So then we will copy this and put table over there like so. So now we're checking for table and checking what the possible values are. Now at this point, we want to just read from the database, get the data, echo it out, exactly what we did here. So I'm just going to copy this and put it there. Now, if it happens that the data is not there, which will go to the default here, all we have to do is echo out an empty JSON object. So we'll do this like that. Okay. Great. So there's an empty object we're returning if nothing happens. Good. At least this will ensure that no matter what happens, we still return JSON, because that's what the user is expecting, some JSON of some kind. So we can put that there for now. So here the table we may want is department. So we'll check for department. And so then we can select all from departments, like so. Okay, good. Then we'll check for a second param here, and this is the ID of the specific record that we want. So we'll say ID is equal to, so if it's set get ID, oops, what am I doing here? I want to change these two to ID. So yes, ID there, ID as well. Good. So if none of this is set, in fact, we shouldn't even come to this, but who knows? So if ID is not set, it should still work, because if they don't set an ID, then we just give them everything. If they do, then we give them something else. So here we're going to ask the if statement and say if ID, like so. So if the ID is set like that, okay, then we'll give them something else. If it isn't, we'll do an else statement like so. It may remove that. So if the ID is set, we'll do one thing. If it isn't, we'll do this. We'll just return everything. So at this point, I'll go down here and echo out. Oh, wait a minute. Yes. So there's also an if statement here that we need. This must be an array that is returned. So we'll say if is array, like so, data. Okay. If the data is an array, then let's echo JSON encode data, like that. Okay, so that's all we need to do. Echo the data out. Good. And then if at some point, if it isn't, so let's put else, like so. So if it isn't an array, let's get this and echo an empty JSON object. That way we just don't keep quiet. So it's the same procedure here. I'll copy this and put it there, like so. And then what I'll say now is select all from departments, where now we have to choose what params we are using here. So in our case, it's the department number, right? But the users don't need to know that. They just need to know it's called ID. So these are the numbers here. Now, if you see, it's not exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like we are used to. It's D009. So again, we don't have to put the users through so much trouble just to get our records here. we can add this first part for them, since we are seeing that it's actually it's similar on every record here. So D00 and then a number. So what we will do here is we're going to say where department underscore number is equal to, wait, is that correct? Dep number, yes. So it should be equal to D00, and then we add our number there. So from there, since this is inside double quotes, we can easily just add ID there like so, and it's going to work. But remember that we need to use prepared statements because we don't know what values are in there. So instead, what I will do is edit the ID. So I'll say ID is equal to, oh, wait a minute, if is ID, okay. All right, I got lost there for a second. So ID is going to be equal to this. So I'll cut that and put it here. So put double quotes there to make sure that the ID is evaluated to be added to this. So D00, and then we add there. Yes. So since we have that ID there, we can add it to the array that we are sending over here. But on this one, we'll remove this inverted comma and just put full colon ID like so. And then we'll say limit 1 because we just want one result. So here, this is for one result, this is for all results. So here we must give it the array that we promised it. So instead of creating an array there, we just put it there directly. So if you put square brackets, that becomes an array. So let's put the key as ID and then put the fat arrow, and then we'll put the ID like so. Okay, so that's our array that we've created and added a value to it right there in one line. And then here, select all from departments where department number is equal to that, limit 1. Okay, so keep in mind that when this is returned, it's going to return an array of objects. So it means if this is an we have returned this, we just want one record. That's what the user wants here, is just one record. So it's up to you to decide how to return that, whether you return just one object or you return an array of one object, because there's a difference there. But here we're returning a single object like so. So I'm not really sure how we should check out the other API, how it works, and then we can decide. For now, let's just return one object. So I'll put a 0 there like that so that we make sure it's one item we're returning. However, it contradicts what we are doing here. So it's quite tough to decide. So let me just remove this for now, like so. Okay, so let's do some tests, shall we? So I'm just going to go back here to my browser and I'm going to refresh. And now you see I get an empty object as predicted. Now, if I go slash, I have to put the index.php at this point and put a question mark and say department. Nope, actually, I'll say table is equal to department like that and press enter. So now I get the data from my department. Very nice. Okay, now we can change the headers here at this point before we echo anything. So at this point I can add a header right at the top here. I'll just say header like so and put brackets, like that, and say content type like that, and I'll say application /JSON. I can put a semicolon and say char set UTF-8. Hopefully that will work out. Okay, so let's see how that becomes different. So if I refresh, Okay, so you see that now? Very nice. So we get this instead, which is looking much, much better because now the browser knows that what we are sending is JSON. Okay, pretty cool. Now let's try and just retrieve one record, maybe record number 2. So I'll put a question, an and at the end there, and say ID is equal to, let's say, 3, and enter. So now I get one result from there. Very, very nice. All right, so now that we have those basics, let's continue in the next video and organize this a little bit better. Okay, I'll see you then.